Hey, everyone. Welcome back for another episode. This episode today on kissing is inspired by many things. If you follow me on Instagram or social media, you know that I have been getting quite into reading this year. One of my goals for 2023 was to stop watching so much TV and replacing that with something that brings me joy and peace and really kind of forces me into my feminine just to really slow down a little bit more. So that thing turned out to be reading. I used to read all the time when I was in college. Literally, you guys would not believe this, but in in my college years, I've never really been much of a drinker. Like I really don't like to get like shit-faced drunk. So I would literally go to my friends' house parties. I would bring my book and I would be sitting amongst this party with everybody that was getting hammered, doing Boone's Farm circles and shots and beers and kegs and everything. And I would literally be the girl like curled up in the corner reading her book. And I would also bring myself a little pint of Absolute and I would measure out my vodka, the amount of vodka that I put in every drink with the cap of the Absolute. Literally one cap of Absolute vodka in my drink, the rest cranberry juice, and then me there with my book. Well, back then I was reading on a Kindle. So, and I'm pretty sure those were like my Twilight days. So I was getting through the Twilight series. So, anyways, I wanted to share that information with you guys. But reading has been really great. I'm trying to get through all of Colleen Hoover's books this year. I'm on my 10th book right now of the year, and I'm recording this on the final day of March. And that I went from reading zero physical books read in probably literally since college. And here I am on my 10th book of the year. So I'm very proud of myself for this. I'm shouting myself out right now. I'm patting myself on the back. So, anyways, the point of me sharing that story with you is in reading these books and getting back into this to hear the author. And again, I've only been reading Colleen Hoover right now, but to hear the author describe how kissing happens in these books, right? Like he slowly makes his way towards her and grabs her, puts his hand behind my neck and the other hand on my lower back, pulling me into him, gazing into my eyes. His lips meet mine, soft, subtle. Swiping his tongue, I slowly part my lips to let him enter me, and his breath takes over my breath. Like all of these I should have brought a book up here to read you a little expert, but I just like spewed that off from pure memory. So I hope you enjoyed that. But again, just like the parting of my lips and I let him enter me and the sweeping of the tongue. It's like, my gosh, who, when you're thinking of just everyday life right now, when you kiss your partner, you're likely not thinking in that much in depth when it comes to kissing. But it was just such a beautiful reminder to me of really the art of kissing and how much intensity and intimacy can really go into this. And then if I feel like this kissing has been on the brain this week. So then, there's this thing called BookTok going around right now. If you're a TikTok fan, where people with influencer accounts are creating TikToks of recreating scenes in books of, be like, babe, push me up against the wall and put your hand, in the door wall and like put your hand over me and let's see if it's just how it is when I'm reading it in my books. And so then they'll have their partners do this and it cracks me up. So the kissing is something that is coming up in those. And then Tuesday night for our No TV Tuesday this week, we took a bath together, or we did actually dinner with my dad and my sister, and then we came home and we did a bath together to unwind for the night. And we had some great deep conversation in our bath this week, which is always good. It's our time to unplug. And we talked about our upcoming couples retreat that we're going on. We talked about just goals that we have for each other. We're ending out the first quarter of the year, so it was really great conversation. And then Danny, leans over to me and he's like, all right, now do you want to come over here and make out with me for a little bit? And I was like, yes. Right. Because what we did in that moment was we established that emotional intimacy. So for me, conversation and getting deep into conversation with him specifically around things like that makes me feel very, very close to him. We both unleash our vulnerability. So that emotional intimacy and connection was already established, and then now I'm feeding into his. He is more of the physical intimacy person, so feeding into his desires of let's make out, and it was great. Of course it was great, we were all in our feels, led to some more things that happened after that, but that is not to say that kissing has to lead always to sex, which is really a theme of this podcast today as well. So when it comes to kissing, I first want you to think about, what was your first kissing experience like? Think back to the day. Maybe it was like your first real kiss. Like I'm talking like, quote unquote French kiss, your first kiss with tongue. What was that like for you? I remember mine very, very vividly. It is one I will never forget. I was I guess you would say I was sort of a prude growing up. I feel like I was the last of my friends to like make out with somebody. And so I just felt like there was a lot of pressure on me, I guess. I don't know, of course, pressure that I was putting on myself. But I remember my first kiss, and it was our school. In middle school, we had this thing called Best Night Out. The middle school that I went to was called OW Best. And so we had Best Night Out. It was at the rec center right next door to our high school, or our middle school rather. And it was basically it was like an open gym for all the middle schoolers, so sixth, seventh, and eighth graders to go to. And they would have a dance once a month. You could play, dodgeball on one side of the gym, basketball on the other side of the gym. The bleachers would be up. So a lot of times the girls would just like, hang out and talk shit about all the other girls, right? Like that's just that's what you did. There was like this lounge, there's vending machines, there was board games. Like you could just go there, and it was honestly like the cool thing to do. The cool thing to do until you got to the age where then it was the cool thing to do was to skip Best Night Out, have your parents drop you off, and then you skip Best Night Out for the 2 hours, but then you're back in time for your parents to pick you up and not even know that you were gone. So I only skipped Best Night Out a few times because I was just a good little girl. And anyway, so my very first French kiss was after a Best Night Out. And I had a boyfriend at the time, and so the kiss was with him. And much like my current marriage, this boyfriend that I had at the time was 6'2", 6'3", very, very tall guy. And I am 5 foot. I have been 5 foot pretty much my like since middle school. And let's see, what grade was I in? I think I was in seventh grade, maybe sixth or seventh grade, definitely middle school. And yeah, so I remember having this first kiss. So it was after Best Night Out, and we were all standing outside, like waiting for our parents to pick us up. There was the classic pickup line of parents in their vehicles, like pulling up to get us. And yeah, I remember him kissing me. I just remember us kissing. I'm gonna say him kissing me because thinking back to myself, I would have never been the one to initiate the kiss, especially with it being my first one. But I remember, so he had braces, and as part of his braces, he had just had his braces removed actually, or had. And so he was at the point of his aftercare braces where you have like that bar in your mouth, like that spacer bar. Oh my gosh, I just remember it still to this day, the most slobbery, wet kiss with like, just picture the slobber like on this spacer bar in his mouth. And like when my tongue would go inside, like I could feel that bar and like feel the spit on this bar. It was like, I remember thinking like, first off, okay, I just had my first kiss, and it was so awkward. It was like, then my friends were like all watching me like, oh my God, Rachel's getting her first kiss. And then my dad is picking me up from Best Night Out. So I get in, I'm like all flustered, sitting in the car, and he's probably like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But I just remember thinking like, if this is what kissing is supposed to be, like, do not sign me up for this. And I'm pretty sure I broke up with him the next day, like dumped him. Again, I was just a kid. So it's like, now I've kissed you, and if this is this, now I'm not attracted to you. I don't want, I didn't sign up for this. So what was your first kissing experience like? Hopefully it was better than mine. I will say that kissing, and now in my adult years, like kissing is, I do enjoy kissing. I wouldn't say it's my most favorite thing to do. Since having braces, my jaw gets so fucking sore during kissing. So I mean, I'm in it. I'm in it. I'm present. I'm in it for the long haul if that's what you want to do. But I would much rather go down on you, honestly. Like for whatever reason, that is not as intense on my jaw. Um, so, or you just, I will lay here and be relaxed and you kiss me. I will then kiss you back, but also please, go over to my neck and other places on my body to give my poor little jaw a break in between. But yeah, so what was your first kissing experience like? I would love to hear. I'd love to hear those things. I hate to talk poorly about my first experience. Overall, I mean, this was a kid that I grew up with for the rest of my, high school years and everything, and was definitely ended up being a close friend. So there was no hard feelings after the breakup, after the kiss. And he's actually no longer with us today. He has passed in the last few years, sadly. So yeah, again, I hate to talk bad about him, but that was, and it's not bad, and that's my next point of here is like whoever really learns how to kiss, so to no fault of them, to no fault of me, and not to say that I wasn't doing anything right. And like now thinking of it, if my tongue was that far into his mouth where I felt his spacer bar, that is too far. The tongue really should be like in the in between, basically like your lips are meeting and then the tongue is right where your lips are meeting, not like you're not jabbing inside them, they're not jabbing inside you, if you know what I mean. But thinking about our kissing education, again, you didn't get kissing education in sex ed. You probably have seen people in movies like kissing and practicing on their hand, or maybe practicing on a friend even. Probably not so much stuffed animals because that would be very dry, but maybe, I don't know. And maybe you read about it in, Cosmo magazine or 17 magazine, kissing tips. I definitely remember, trying to get my dad to buy me those magazines when I was hitting like high school years and stuff. And yeah, so that was a very long, we're already 15 minutes into this episode. All right, get on with it, Rachel. Like that was a very long intro to the kissing and why this episode came about. The last thing I will share, again, I said kissing has been on the brain this week. So there was the books, the book talks. Danny asked me to make out on Tuesday during our bath experience. And then also, so then Wednesday morning, my CoStar, which is my astrology app, my CoStar message for the day was to think about kissing somebody. And I was like, done. Like I will just revisit last night and our experience that we had the night before. So plus also, have you seen my husband? Like it is not hard to bring fantasy to mind when you are married to someone like him with his personality and good looks and all the things. So all right, let's see. Now I wanted to go over basically some do not do's and some do do's, and then some pro tips, if you will, around kissing. And then the last thing I'll share is there is another sex therapist that I follow who recommends and talks about her experience in making out with her husband every single night and why she does that. And so I wanted to share a little bit about that as well, because when I was listening to this, I was like, you know what, that is something that I would like to get behind, because I can feel myself a little bit in this cringe space at times, which I'll share a little bit more about that too. Take a drink of water here. So so basically some do not do's or some to avoids around kissing. So the first one that people say, and this is one that I felt in my first kissing experience, is like too much tongue. You don't want to have too much tongue to where the tongues are almost like in a battle with each other. Like you make contact with the tongue and then it's like the swirling and like the back and forth. And if you are watching this on YouTube, I'm going to use my fingers to example for you what the tongues would look like. I don't know, it's coming up for me and we're going with it. So if you have too much tongue and it's like that tongue competition, a lot of people don't like that. Just a lot of people don't like that. Okay, so be cautious of using just the right amount of tongue, not too much tongue, not like not pokey tongue, like don't make your tongue like so stiff that it's going to be pokey to the other person, like jabby. And too much tongue could also mean too wet. Again, back to my first experience, like too wet, like too much saliva. There's a good point in like taking breaks when you're kissing so that you can kind of swallow some of the saliva that has come up. And I'm just thinking, there have been times where I've been actively making out and also swallow at the same time. I feel like that is a skill in and of itself. And then also the too much tongue can come off a little bit like too aggressive for some people. So the next thing, so too much tongue is the first one. The next one is like pursed lips. So that like puckered up, pursed lips. So if your lips are too tight, it's almost like you're coming off a little bit guarded to the person that you're kissing. And also it just doesn't like feel nice for you to have pursed lips. Now, of course, if you're just doing like a peck, pursed lips maybe, but also if you see, like if you think of it in the movies, like when kids are having their first kiss and they just close their eyes and they're there and they're like and they have their lips out, they're like waiting to be kissed, and the person that's kissing them is like, what is this? So avoiding the pursed lips. And on the opposite side of that, like the floppy lips, like too soft of lips, I would also avoid that. So that can be like too soft. It's almost like hello, are you here? I don't know, like just very like it's too soft. So not too hard, not too soft. It's like, what is that fairy tale? Oh my God, what is that fairy tale? The bears, they go and they're like, soup is too hot, or the porridge is too hot, the porridge is too cold. You guys know, I'm like drawing a blank on what movie, what fairy tale that is. It does have to do with bears. Okay, I need to digress. I need to get out of this. Okay, so too tight, too soft, like just the right temperature, just the right firmness. Oh my gosh, that was a huge thunder. I don't know if you guys heard that. Now my dog is going crazy. It sounded like somebody just ran into our house. Holy moly. Okay, back onto the kissing. So sorry if you hear Bane in the back. He's just doing his job in protecting me. But the next one would be bad breath. Okay, bad breath. Now, I'm not saying like everybody doesn't just have like fresh, minty breath at all times, but just be conscious of this. So, like, good personal hygiene comes into play here. So, if you're brushing your teeth every day, or if you're brushing your teeth, after you have like a oniony, garlicky, gross meal, or you just like ate some beef jerky or something, I don't know, like, but having good oral hygiene, it's also just more enticing to kiss a clean mouth. I love when Danny kisses me goodbye in the morning, when we're departing, and he has just brushed his teeth, or like he has gum in or something. I'm like, oh yes, like I love me a minty kiss. It feels so refreshing and I love it, love it, love it. So, and again, you're not always going to have minty breath. You don't always need to be brushing your teeth or keeping mints on hand or chewing gum. But being conscious of that is definitely in your favor when it comes to kissing and being a good kissing partner, even. Okay, the next one is having your eyes open. Now, there is something to be said about like having subtle eye contact and eye gazing. You've heard me talk about that before on this show, but the direct eyes, like I'm staring at you while I'm kissing you very close up, like that is to be avoided. If I'm kissing you and I like basically like lightly flutter my eyes open and you're wide-eyed staring back at me, no. Just no. So generally having your eyes closed during kissing is going to be best. And I'll talk a little bit more about the subtle eye contact when we get to the do's part of this episode. So dry lips is another one. So we talked bad breath. So dry lips would be another one. And I realize, for dudes, it might come off like a little bit girly if you're using chapstick, but honestly, get over it. That's another thing that I love. Danny uses the black brand of chapstick, the chapstick brand, black bottle. And I love when he kisses me and then I get that chapstick exchange is what I call it. I'm like, "Ooh, yeah." I'm like, thanks for that, babe." Rub my lips together. And I actually use a flavored chapstick, Bosom Buddy. It's one of the products that my company sells. And this one that I have here is dragon fruit. I put some on before this episode, but I'll do some more because it's so damn good. But when he kisses me, when I have my chapstick, it's edible and it's tingly and I am a delightful treat. Just saying. So dry lips, though, if you've ever kissed somebody that has dry lips and it's like it feels dry, almost feels like dry, pokey skin, even flaking skin off. Oh, no, 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 no. Okay, so just just use the chapstick. Keep your lips moisturized. That is an important piece of this. Okay, next one would be going too fast. And my best example of this for anybody that is Grey's Anatomy fans, I always would comment on this to Danny when we would be watching Grey's together, but the kissing exchange between Owen Hunt and Christina Yang, or pretty much like Owen Hunt and anybody, because he is a very intense man. And whenever they would kiss, it would be like, like kissing and all this back and forth. And it was like so hard. It was like very aggressive, very intense. Every single scene of Christina and Owen kissing. So that would be my example of too fast, too aggressive. So I don't know if you're not a Grey's fan, like YouTube Owen and Christina kissing, because it is fast. And most people that I talk to, they prefer like slow, sensual kissing, like again, creating that very intimate, like slowed down space between each other. And with the too fast, that leads me into the next thing, the teeth bumping. Like you want to avoid teeth bumping. If you are bumping teeth with somebody while you are kissing, that might be a good sign to reevaluate your kissing techniques. Maybe you're leaning into, like you're too close to the person, like pushing into them. Maybe you just need to like shift your head a little bit more. And these are things like if you're dating somebody for the first time, or like kissing, there is an art to this almost. Like it is basically like doing a dance with somebody, with your tongues, really. So the teeth bumping. And then another one, this is a big one for me personally, is a prickly beard. Guys, if you are not using a beard oil or a beard moisturizer, something, if you got that mustache going on and you're kissing your person and it is literally poking our face, there are times I have to get on Danny sometimes about this. So like he'll be kissing me goodbye, or we'll be kissing. I'll be like, "You're prickly." Like, no, I don't want to be pricked. So prickly beard is definitely something to be conscious of. And dudes, like listening, you can like pet your facial hair, like feel it, like go against the grind on your facial hair. Does it feel pokey to you, or does it feel nice and soft? That is basically what we're feeling when you kiss us. So get you a good beard oil. Again, the company I work for, did not intend to talk about products that I sell here, but the company that I work for, we also sell a beard oil in an amazing scent called Atlas. And that is maybe something you want to check out. I'll include the link to my store in the show notes for you today, since I have mentioned a few products already, which again, I did not intend on doing. Okay. So then the last thing is, a lot of times why people, and women specifically, or the partner that has a lower sex drive in the relationship, if there is one, oftentimes we feel like kissing has to lead to something else. So I'm going to give you some tips in the rest of this podcast to really help you avoid that. And this is the thing, like kissing doesn't always have to lead to sex or lead to really anything after. Like kissing can just be kissing. Kissing can be a way for you to connect with your partner, to feel into each other, to just like have that intimacy and have that love between each other. So kissing, we really got to break this barrier. This oftentimes happens in longer term relationships, is where you feel like the kissing has to lead to something. And I'm going to go, I promise I'll go into more detail on that because I have some notes here on it. Okay, so for now, let's go into the tips for good kissing. And so basically don't do anything that I've already said. Just kidding, just kidding. I'm getting more of a breakdown, but that is the gist of it. So, being first tip is to be gentle, be slow, soft, sensual. Honestly, pick up any love story book and go to a kissing scene, and that is going to be your example of how to kiss, like how a woman would like to be kissed, generally like to be kissed, unless you're Christina Yang, like I said. So being gentle, being slow, being intentional with your time, kind of sweeping the bottom lips, if you will. That's again that sweeping, that is a word that came up for me directly from these books. Colleen Hoover uses that a lot in her kissing scenes. But sweeping the bottom lips, like the lips are so sensitive. So using your tongue to really like caressing the bottom of the lips, using your lips to kind of like suck a little bit on the bottom lip, even that can be super sexy for some people. And again, when it comes to kissing, just like we talk about on the show, to have conversations around sex, you can also be having conversations around kissing and checking in with your partner and asking them what it is that they like, and really kind of checking in with them to make sure that what you're doing feels good. And so that can be as simple as, after it's done and aftercare is done and all that, and you're done making out, and be like, what did you think about that? Like, how was that experience for you? What did you think about me, grabbing your bottom lip like that? Did you enjoy that? And, just having those little check-ins. It doesn't have to be like this big extravagant conversation that happens around kissing or sex. So the next one is, as I mentioned before, but being fully present in that moment of kissing your partner. And what I mean is, like, when you're kissing, like, be there. Don't be like looking at the TV in the background, looking at your phone in the other hand. I'm not making this up. These are things that I've seen happen and have heard happen from clients. And also, being fully in the moment also means not thinking about what is going to come next, not automatically like moving and setting your body up, if you're laying down to like get ready to receive that blowjob or get ready to go down on them, like being in the moment, like kissing for the sake of kissing, and knowing that that's an intimate exercise to be able to connect you with your person. And so really paying attention to your partner's cues. If you notice that they're squirming, or if you notice maybe like that their neck is starting to hurt, so maybe they're like feeling a little bit tense, or literally like maybe they're like having to hold their head up. And so picking up on their cues, like being attuned to their body and their movements, is going to be really important. And so noticing how they're reacting to the things that you're doing. So is their breath becoming a little bit more increased, or are they, is there any sounds that they're making? Are they moaning into you, right? Like those are going to be indications that what you're doing is good. Keep doing those things. So let's see. So how they're reacting, and then back to the tongue. Using the tongue sparingly. Tongue, I would say like the majority of people like to use tongue, but there's a good, like a right way and a wrong way of doing it. Again, if you're in and you're like the tongues are connecting, and then it's like this back and forth, and like the tongues are going for a long amount of time, I would say generally that would be what to avoid. So if you're kissing and then your tongues are meeting, and it's like they make, two little glides with each other, and then you come and you take a break, you pull away, and maybe then it's like a couple pecks or like just kisses on the lips, and then the tongues come back in, and now they're doing this dance with each other, and then they break away, right? So these subtle movements, these sparingly movements, as I said earlier, it's like almost like you're doing a dance together. So think about when you're doing like a ballroom sort of dancing, right? You're dancing close together, but then you're stretching your arms out, right? You're spinning her around, or you're being spinned around, and then you come back together and you're close again. And now you're doing your hands this way and your hands that, you get it. You know how to, you've seen ballroom dancing before. So really like having that dance together. And then, as I said earlier, if your tongue is all the way in their mouth, or your tongue or their tongue is all the way in your mouth, that is probably an indication that too much tongue is happening. So really like hanging out in this in between space, this space where, the mouths meet, like hanging out right there. So you're not like bleh, like you're just like all up in their space. Okay. And so yeah, my biggest tips is like slow, sparing tongue, and being present. Like those are like the top 3 tips I would say for kissing. Now, some other pro tips, as I said, as I promised you on here, some pro tips that I would give you would be, first one would be switching the lips. So switching which lip you're focusing on. Is it the bottom lip? Is it the top lip? Are you doing most of the focusing, or are they returning and now they're focusing on your top lip and your bottom lip? As I mentioned, like the sweeping of the tongue, like over the lips, that can be really enticing for people, again, because the lips are super, super sensitive. Um, and yeah, just like switching where your focus is, and then also switching your head positions. So if you are finding again that you're always in the, like your head is always leaning to the right, your neck might start to get a little bit sore. So giving yourself permission to like slowly starting to move your head when you're in the makeout session, to like maybe now you're straight, and then now on the next one, again, when you're taking that break, when the tongues are apart, you're separated for a minute, and then that's your time to switch and turn your head the other way, so that way you don't get kinks in your in your neck or anything. And this one this one comes up for me specifically, again, because my husband Danny, he is 6 foot tall and I am 5 foot tall, so there is this weird, like height matters. And so when we're kissing standing up, he almost like needs to bend down a little bit. So I'm sure for him, like his legs probably start to burn after a little bit. And then I always stand up on my tiptoes for whatever reason. And yeah, it just like the height difference for us, it can make it a little bit harder on the neck and strenuous for me. So being aware of your height difference between you and your partner would be a pro tip, and a tip, again, just to be more in tune with each other. All right. And next would be the nibbling on the lips, if you will. Not like biting too hard, although I shouldn't say that, like some people like that, but like nibbling on the lips, like just kind of like using your teeth and like kind of like dragging them over the bottom lip can be super sexy. Again, these are tips, these are things that you would want to check in with your partner to see if they like, or again, tune into their body movements and how they're reacting to the things that you're doing. But in general, I would say like nibbling and using a little bit of, light biting can be sexy during kissing for sure. The next sexy tip I have for you is the hand placements. The hand placements during kissing can be super sexy, like very intentional, very, very good. Okay. So like the hand behind the head, or the hand like kind of like grabbing the back of their neck. And this would be more so, I would say, tips for the men to do to the women. So like grabbing her by the back of the neck, and then you got back of the neck, and then your other hand at her lower back, and really kind of like sweeping and bringing her into you. That can be back of the neck, back of the head, really. And that can be so good for creating safety. So many things, like creating safety, making her feel safe and secure in being held like that. There's also a sense of dominance that you're exerting when you are holding her like this, like a sense of masculinity that is coming through with these specific hand placements. So the hand, back of the head, and the lower back, and you're literally like you have full support of her. This gives you more ability to like, even dip her if you wanted to, or makes it easier for her to, feel supported if she is changing her head positions, or you are wanting to kind of change the head positions for the both of you. But yeah, that like that masculine leadership, those hand placements specifically, those are sexy, sexy, sexy. Okay. And then also, kissing in other places. So as I said earlier, kind of like taking a break for me, again, my jaw gets super, super sore. I don't know why. Ever since, again, having braces, my jaw gets really sore during making out. And so I appreciate the hell out of changing it up. And when we, take time to kiss necks and collarbones and things like that, um gives my mouth a little bit of a rest, and it's also super, super sexy. So when those things, when you can take some breaks and kiss on other places too, that is another pro tip I say for you. And then back to the eye contact, like making a little bit of a subtle eye contact. Not, again, not like you're staring at them like eyes wide open, but as you're pulling away from each other, and you like kind of like in those breaks, and you're pulling away and like your eyes are like slightly fluttered open, and you like make that little quick exchange of eye contact, that can be really exciting for people, like to be seen in that moment. It can also be very vulnerable for people to be seen in that moment, in that proximity. So just, again, being mindful of this, and again, having conversations around the sexual experiences that you are having with your partner are so, so important. So then pausing and breathing, right? So pausing, breathing, slow, subtle movements, switching it up. These are all great kissing tips. I hope you're really getting a lot out of this so far. Okay. So as I said, the one of the sex therapists that I follow, Vanessa Marin, she had a reel or a YouTube recently on why her and her husband make out every single night. And so I listened into this and I was like, interesting concept. So first, when you first start dating somebody, and this is all coming directly from her, so when you first start dating somebody, right, you are in that phase, that honeymoon phase of like you're always touching each other, you're always kissing, you're always making out. And it's funny because I remember when Danny and I first started dating almost 10 years ago, and we were at a friend's house for a bonfire, and we were, standing there kind of making out and kissing and stuff. And my friend was like, "Oh, you guys, that's so cute, you guys are still in the honeymoon phase." And I remember leaving that party and telling him, like, I always want to stay in the honeymoon phase. Like, I don't ever want to get to the point in as us being a couple where we no longer kiss anymore and we no longer make out, like that is an important piece to him. And he was like, yeah, same. I same for me, you know. So yeah, but anyways, that is common. So then when you start to get into more long-term relationships, there we get to a point where that the kissing starts to stop and the touching starts to stop, right? Like that longing, that drive for each other starts to like kind of slowly dissipate because comfortability sets in, kind of autopilot that starts to set in. But then also what happens is we start to get to the point where kissing only happens as a form of initiating. And generally, I hear this in male female relationships where it's generally the men are starting to initiate the kissing as a form of initiating sex. And what happens is generally the partner with the lower sex drive, they start to then become avoidant of the touch and specifically avoidant of kissing, because they think that this starts to build when kissing is only happening as a form of initiation for sex. If that person with that lower sex drive is not already turned on or already wanting to have sex, then when their partner is approaching them to engage in kissing, they're shying away, they're avoidant of that because they're like, no, I don't want this to lead to something else. I don't want to lead them on, essentially. And so then they avoid it altogether. And this is not what you want to do. This is where I said like that cringe kind of sets in. So then over time, it's like when their partner even starts to get closer to them, or even like kissing them goodbye, right? Like kissing goodbye becomes so quick. And if it's even just like a second too long, they might start to feel like that cringe, like, ooh, like I don't want this, right? Like, and you really don't want that to set in. So she recommends making out with your partner every single night to really break up that idea and that thought and that concept that kissing has to lead to sex. And so for her and her husband, they make out every single night when they're in bed. And their rule is that tongue has to be involved. So it can't just be like peck, 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 kiss. Tongue has to be involved. And for them, this has brought more intimacy into their life, because we know when there is kissing happening, right, this can start to increase our desire and our connection, and feeling connected to our partners. But when you take sex off the table, when you take that expectation off the table that we are kissing to kiss, and we'll see basically what happens after that, that sort of breaks down that barrier again, that the connection, that there has to be that kiss to sex connection. So I really enjoyed this concept, and definitely something that I want to bring up to Danny, and perhaps even implement in our own marriage. And so I'm curious what you all would think about that as well. Kissing every night, or every day even. Just kissing more, really. So if you're listening to this and you are the person that is at that cringe point where you're avoiding kissing, or you're avoiding contact and touch with your partner for fear, essentially, that it's going to lead to sex, and there's guilt maybe setting in, or really, guilt is really what it comes down to, setting in, that you're feeling guilty because you're not in the mood, or you're feeling guilty because then you do kiss and then you don't want to have sex afterwards, right? Like, so bringing more kissing and intentional makeout sessions into your relationship can, again, break down that barrier and that idea that kissing has to lead to sex. So that is everything I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this episode on kissing. I feel a little flushed talking about these things, because again, I'm thinking back to our most recent intense makeout session in our bath time on Tuesday. It was quite fun, quite enjoyable. And I've been working every night since then, so haven't really had much time to connect with each other since Tuesday night. So anyways, enjoy this episode, enjoy these tips. Feel free to DM me, email me, anything if you learned something about this episode today, or during this episode today, or if you got some new things that you're thinking of trying. I always love hearing from you guys. And of course, if you are listening to the show, take a picture, tag me on social media, on Instagram at _Rachel_Maine. And yeah, I love hearing from you guys, and hearing what episodes you like and what things you like from each episode. So thank you for continuing to listen and support the show. I will see y'all next week. Have a great day.